morning. Good morning. I hope you can hear me far away in the other Nordic countries. What a blessing to be together. Okay, so the title of today's sermon is Letting Go. So we are in a 40-day period of reflection. And I suppose one way to look at it is we look to our life up to now, looking back, and maybe some things that we would like to change, improve, or take away. And so it's a time of reflection and a time of redetermination. So I think it's good to let go of things that we don't need. So I would like to begin actually by reading some words from Father, because what is our life about? It's about true love. That's what it's about. So the more we understand and can practice it, the better for all of us and the whole world. He says this: a life of true love simply means living for the sake of others. It is a life of giving to others first, for their sake, before wanting others to give to you for your sake. It is giving to others and then forgetting what you have given to them. It is not a matter of wanting something in return for what you have given. Rather, you feel sorry that you were not able to give more. Beautiful words. So are you living your life according to true love? Are you living for the sake of others and giving and expecting nothing back? I think this is our guide. This is what we're striving to do. And he also said this: once we have a relationship of love with God and become one with God, our value increases instantly to the level of God's value. Now is the time to fulfill this fundamental relationship. So true love is a relationship with God, where God's love dwelling in us is expressed. So God can express himself through us. All human beings are created to say, I am in the Father, and the Father is in me. This is everyone's fully attainable goal. When we fully comprehend the design for man in God's concept of creation, we will understand that perfection is within our grasp. Do you believe this? Yeah. I'd like to emphasize those three things. Now is the time to fulfill this fundamental relationship. 2,000 years ago, Jesus said, you must become perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. 2,000 years ago. Also, this is everyone's fully attainable goal. It's not like so far away we can't attain it. So when I ask, are you living a life of true love? It's quite possible to live this, isn't it? And also, perfection is within our grasp. Perfection. Now, we understand perfection is actually maturity of heart. And if I ask you, have you reached perfection yet? And of course you would say, well, I'm getting there. Yes, I'm trying. But actually it's within our grasp. It's about maturity of heart. So what does the divine principle, how does it explain about how we grow? We have these stages of spiritual growth: the formation, growth, and completion. Then we enter the direct dominion of God. So in one sense, you could say there are 4 stages. 3 stages of growth, and then we enter this realm of direct dominion. And there are different ways to look at this. You can say, well, when you're a child, you're at the formation stage. A teenage, you're growing. And then you complete when you become physically an adult. Okay? Of course, in the family, we can say, well, there's the child's level of love. Then there's the brothers and sisters. And then there's a husband, the wife, and then there's the parents. Or you could say there's children's love, husband-wife love, and then parents' unconditional love. And maybe then you can say there's the grandfather, the grandparents. Maybe this is the direct dominion, when you have achieved everything as a parent and given your unconditional love fully. But there's another way to look at this. And this other way of looking at growth, I would say, is more like stages of consciousness, awareness, our perception of our reality. It's interesting because I have this book, which I talked about a few weeks ago, that most people, when they leave this physical world, well, those who don't go onto the spiritual world but are earthbound, they're earthbound because they don't realize they're dead. Or they're earthbound because they're afraid of what is to come. Or they're earthbound because they have some kind of resentment or some unfinished business. So it's to do with their perception, their level of consciousness. And there's a man called Michael Bernard Beckwith, and I thought he's a spiritual leader in America of the Agape Spiritual Center. And he talks about growth in these terms. He says, first, there's the victim consciousness. Victim consciousness, what is that? I'm controlled by external forces. I have no control over my life. When bad things happen, you blame somebody. You know, it's my parents that caused it. Yeah, it's because of where I live. So this consciousness, you can't grow. You're stuck. Because it's like you're blaming someone else. That's a pretty, you could say because of the fall. We could say, well, the victims of the fall, yes? It's not because of me, it's because of Adam and Eve, yeah? And look what they did. Why do I have to suffer because of them? Yeah? But the next stage is called manifestor consciousness. That is to do with that I am the creator of my life, using my mind, my thoughts, and my words and my deeds, that I can create my own life. God made us not to be victims and to suffer, but even if we are suffering, that we can overcome it and we can use our creativity. We're meant to be co-creators with God. But then there's another stage, and that is channeled consciousness. And that is where we can say God creates through me, that I am created by God, God dwells in me, and I need to surrender to God's presence and allow God to work through me. I can do so much with my thinking, yeah? But if I can open myself up to a higher level and realize that God dwells in me and allow God to work through me, then God is like I'm becoming a channel for God. And if we continue from there, then we reach the being consciousness, a oneness with God. This is a direct dominion. I like this because it's, if I ask you, are you perfect yet? Well, the question is, your consciousness, your awareness, what are you aware of? How you see the world, how you see yourself, how you experience God. What does love mean? It's a level of consciousness. So let's come to this topic of letting go. So what stops us from maturing? What keeps us on maybe a level of blame or victimness? We all can feel victims at some time, yes? So I would say fear. Fear affects us. We need to let go of that. Guilt. We should let go of any kind of feelings of guilt. Anger. It's not good to be angry. And resentment, poison for the spirit. And judgment. Stop judging other people. Look with God's eyes. And anxiety. Stop worrying. Trust in God. God is there and life is, all is well. As Mother said, all is well. And regret. Don't regret mistakes you've made. It's the past. Forget the past. And complain. Stop complaining. Be grateful for your life. So these negative attitudes, feelings, thoughts, they block us from actually experiencing God's love. So what do we need to do? I always find books, and I found this book. It's called Love is Letting Go of Fear. So you could say, well, if you live a life of loving, then you cannot experience fear at the same time. Actually, love and fear don't go together. If you are a person full of love, how can you feel fear? There are many stories of people who've been in very fearful situations, but they found the strength of themselves they could overcome it through love. The man who wrote this is called Jerry Jampolsky, and you will see that he was born in 1925 and he died only 3 years ago at the age of 95. He had a long life. And this book became a bestseller. It's now actually it's still in print. It's sold over 3 million copies. And it's actually had a very positive impact upon many people's lives. And I think this is in line with this theme of letting things go. So what do we know about him? Well, he had dyslexia as a child. He had two older brothers who were very smart, and he wasn't. And at that time, he wasn't diagnosed. He didn't know he was dyslexic. He just had a hard time studying. And his brothers, they got a lot of praise, whereas his parents, they kind of, they want him to do better, but he didn't feel he was good enough. And so, because of that, in order to feel his value, he wanted a lot of money to feel important. So he put his focus on his external achievements to show to people, okay, maybe I'm not so smart, but I can be successful. And he actually became a successful psychiatrist, both adult and child psychiatrist. And through that, he became wealthy. He lived in San Francisco. He bought a big house on a hill looking down at all 3 bridges in San Francisco. And he had 2 children and his wife. And he thought he'd made his dream, the American dream. He'd made it. But then, one morning, he woke up and he felt empty. He felt, well, what is this it? Is this all there is to life? He felt empty inside. He felt depressed, and he couldn't understand why. And then his marriage started to fall apart. He was married for 20 years. And and he blamed his wife, of course. He was in this kind of victim consciousness. He blamed his wife. And he also was guilt-ridden. Because, he put value on all these external things, and now he felt really guilty. And because he felt guilty, he started drinking. He became an alcoholic as a way to kind of ease the pain, and he developed back pain, which meant he was limited in what he could do. He couldn't do any gardening, couldn't go for runs. So, but this guilt, of course, was connected to his back pain. His state of mind, he was kind of not happy. By this time, he was 50 years of age. So the first 50 years of age, 50 years of life, he very much lived in a victim consciousness and trying to achieve things externally until he hit a brick wall. And then a friend of his introduced him to a book called A Course in Miracles. Do you know what this book is? Yes. So let me just briefly explain. It's a very thick book, actually, and it's in 3 volumes, a textbook, a workbook, and a manual for teachers. And the person who wrote it is called Helen Schucman, but she didn't write it by herself. She heard the voice of Jesus dictate the words to her. So actually this book, according to her, are words from Jesus about how you can grow, how you can find God. And this book was first published in 1975, and it teaches about love, forgiveness, and inner peace. And because Jerry Jampolsky was not at peace, and he'd lost his love, and he was racked with guilt, he was suffering, but actually he was also an atheist. And he thought the religious people were something wrong with them, kind of just afraid of life, or kind of a bit intellectually limited. But his friend, had these photocopies of this book, and she said, this is a great book, for spiritual transformation. It'll really help you because you're going through difficulties. Have a read. He didn't want to, but just to kind of stop her nagging him, he said, okay, I'll read one page. When he read the one page, he started to cry. And he heard a voice within. He said, "Physician, heal thyself. This is your way home." He heard it inside. He started to cry. And then he explains more. Then I felt that the universe opened up to me and I became part of everything that was. There was no separation, and I felt clear in the belief that the essence of my being was love. I felt a sense of peace and joy beyond anything I had ever experienced. In the depth of my soul, I also had an inner knowledge that I was in the presence of God. I felt from that moment on, my whole life would be changed. I was going to live a life devoted to God. In that one instant, I somehow knew that my life would be dedicated to giving. Because all of his life, he thought his life was about getting and holding on to what he got. I had never really understood what a mystical experience was, but I sensed that was what I was experiencing. In my heart, I felt that a map of life was being given to me, and that God's will and my will would become one. Through my study of A Course in Miracles, I began to realize that there are only two ways to make decisions. The first one was already familiar to me. My old way of listening to the ego, a voice based on fear and separation. The second was the one I had just begun to learn, which was to listen to the voice of God, a voice based on love and joining. So he had a profound, life-changing experience in one moment by reading one page. And sometime later, because he studied this book and he really wanted to give something, rather than just being a psychiatrist and feeling good about himself to help others, he got this inspiration to start the Center for Attitudinal Healing. The Center for Attitudinal Healing. And he started with a group of with children who had life-threatening diseases to help them somehow find peace of mind through their difficulties. And this Center for Attitudinal Healing then developed beyond just those who had illnesses, but it spread into the educational field, into business, into all aspects of life. And now this Center for Attitudinal Healing is based in 35 different countries. So, he really wanted to change his life and give. And of course, and then he wrote this book. And since that time, he's written several books. And he said that, life is a choice. Life is a choice. We don't need to live through suffering and feeling victims of everything and feel empty inside. We have a choice. And so he said this. He said that we have a choice between peace and conflict. And we can accept that the truth is peace and the illusion is conflict. That actually we're not meant. Life is not really about conflict. I mean, communism will say that's what life is about. Progress through conflict, yes. But we know that actually it's through cooperation. But the truth of life, the essence of who we are, is love. That's who we are. And the illusion is fear. Fear does not exist, except in our minds. We create. It's something we create. And in this book of miracles, Course in Miracles, it says there are only two emotions, love and fear. And they cannot coexist. So we live a life of true love, we can get rid of our fear. The thing is, there are many negative emotions, but they're all coming from fear, according to this book. So, guilt, anger, resentment, anxiety, complaint, regret, judgment, all come from fear, a separation from love. We feel anxious. We feel guilty we've done something wrong. We resent what someone did to us. Yeah? We complain about life. We regret all the things we did wrong, and we judge others. This is based upon fear, separation from God. But from love come all these positive emotions: gratitude, joy, forgiveness, hope, contentment, trust, acceptance. When you accept your life, let things go. But love is the source of all of these positive emotions. And, we can look at it like this, is that who we really are, we are beings of love. This is who we are. But fear and guilt is like a curtain covering who we really are. It's like on the outside. That's why we need to take away, get rid of our fear and our guilt. When I reflect upon my life, actually, in, you could say, my recent days or recent years, I realize how much fear is inside of me and guilt. And it goes back to childhood. It goes back to the schools. It goes back to kind of the world we live in. It's almost, we get indoctrinated with a lot of fear and guilt. That's why these people who cannot go onto the spirit world, who are earthbound, their like awareness of reality is they're afraid that they'll be punished, and they feel guilty of what they've done wrong. But it's an illusion. So another way to look at it is that if we are run by fear, then rather than living in the present, we're being affected by the past guilt and future fear. Yeah? So fearing what's going to happen in the future and guilt for the past. And then we're squeezed. It's like we can't be present. But if we are ruled by love, then the past we can let go and the future we don't worry about because we live in the now in love. Another way to look at it is that there are like old films playing inside of us, all these memories going round and round in our subconscious. We're not always aware of them, but they get triggered when we have when people maybe disagree with us or are in conflict with them. It's like things come out, yeah. But it's like a recording over and over again. But if we are ruled by love, and people maybe are not nice to us, we can forgive them, we can embrace them, we can accept them, we can understand, well, they're coming from fear, maybe because they're not happy. So we can say our true nature, love, is from God, whereas fear is manufactured by our mind. It is not real. We've created it. God didn't put it there. So how do we let go of fear? Got any ideas? How do we remove the block to the awareness of love's presence? Are we aware that love dwells in us? Are we aware that God's Spirit is in us? Or do we say, no, I'm not, I'm far away from God. I'm trying my best, but somehow it's just so hard. But it's an awareness, how we perceive reality, that God dwells in us. Actually, our identity is we are beings of love. So what would you say is the most important thing to rid ourselves of fear and to become more aware of love's presence? Forgiveness. This book is very much about forgiveness. So, through forgiveness, we can learn not to judge others and to see everyone, including ourselves, as guiltless and blameless. So if I look at each one of you, do I judge you? Or can I just see you as your original true self, that each one of you is a child of God, and that I don't dwell upon the things I don't like about you or your particular ways of being, but can I just look at you through God's eyes, that you are guiltless, that you are blameless, and can I look at myself the same? Can you look at yourself and think, well, okay, I don't have any guilt, it's just I'm creating it. I'm loved. Yeah, I don't need to blame myself for any mistakes. I made mistakes, but that's learning. That's okay. So forgiveness, we release other people and we release ourselves when we look at them without judging them, but to accept them as they are. To accept them as they are. Does God accept us as we are, or does God judge us? If we think God judges us, that's why we're in fear. But actually, God will not look for what's wrong. He will see us as his children, pure. I mean, when you look at little children, you can say, well, they're very pure and innocent. Already, you could say they're close to God. So it's important to let go of judgment. I will not judge today. So in this book, he gives daily practices, Spend a whole day and decide not to judge anyone. Can you do it? Don't judge anyone. The thing is, we have all these patterns in our head and they come out. Okay, secondly, we can let go of fear when we stop judging and stop projecting the past into the future and live only in the now. So this judging has a lot to do with what we project because of our past. We're projecting our past experiences into the future. So we have all of these stuff in our subconscious, and then we judge things based upon what's inside of us from the past. So that's why we should let go of the past. Childhood memories. Do you know there's a picture of me there? I'm the little one in the middle. I don't know how old I am. I'm 2 or 3. And then to my right is my oldest brother, John. He was 5 years older. And then my other brother, Robert. And that's my father. So we all come from families. And we all want happy families. But the question is, where did the fear in me and the guilt in me come from? Well, I have to say, one aspect was from my father. My father was a very good man, but also he could get very angry. And so I was afraid of him. If I look back, I was afraid of him. So I wanted to be good. Yeah. If I was good, then he wouldn't get angry. And I always remember one thing in my life. If I try to go back, what affected me? There was a time when I was about 7 years of age, and I was crying. I don't know why I was crying, but my father wanted me to stop crying. And it was so difficult. But actually, so you could say I stopped crying because I was afraid of him. I stopped crying because I had to. But it's interesting because in my life, I don't cry much. And it's got a lot to do with controlling my emotions. Or I'm not. Another aspect of me is what's followed me throughout my life. You might think I'm very expressive. I'm a bit of an actor, a teacher. But there's a part of me where I feel I'm not allowed to speak. I was teaching for many years, and every time we had a staff meeting, I couldn't speak. I just kind of was afraid. I was tongue-tied. So there's these two aspects of me, because in my original nature is very free and expressive. There's another side of me where I feel I can't express. And it's followed me, this. And so I can say, well, maybe it goes back to that one point in time. Of course, as an adult, I can forgive my father because he did his very best. He was on a lot of strain. and very good man. But it's interesting how something in your childhood can stay with you. You're not even aware of it. You don't know where it comes from. And then this thing with guilt, this guilt doing wrong. And that's also to do with the school system. Because at that time, if you to be punished, then you could get the cane, or I could have a slip, a running shoe on the hand, or a ruler on the back of the hand. And so that was fear and punishment, and you can feel guilt for this. And so I think, but if I talk about myself, this thing about I want to be good, well, that's an original nature. But does it come from guilt? Does it come from fear? And to some extent, yes. I would say yes. And am I unique? Is it just me? What about everybody? I mean, according to this book, and according to our understanding of fallen nature, we all have it. That's why we need to let go of these things. That's why we need to forgive the people who may have said things to us, done things to us that hurt us. We have to let it go. We also have to forgive ourselves. We didn't know any better. Like Jesus on the cross, he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He didn't accuse them. So, I think that I am learning, because I often say to my wife, oh, let it go, or let it pass. Not to dwell upon the past. I mean, if I think about our own children, when they were younger, as parents, you want them to kind of go a certain way, to inherit your faith, your understanding of life. And then when they get older and they don't go the way you want, that's difficult. And then you can accuse yourself and think, what did I do wrong? But actually, I'm at peace with all of my children, wherever they are, whatever they're doing. Each one of them is God's gift. And each one of them has to go their path. So I let them go. It's very important to let your children go. This man who wrote the book, he was 50 years of age before he realized, and he was definitely guided. He was struggling, and he read one page, and it made a complete change to his life. So it's never too late. And sometimes I feel it does take we do need a lifetime to work things out, to let go of things which hold us back. And so this book is really about love, forgiveness, and inner peace. Because through forgiveness we find inner peace. And then we can experience love. They go together. So let me return to Father's words to remind us about true love. A life of true love simply means living for the sake of others. It's a life of giving to others first for their sake, before wanting others to give to you for your sake. It is giving to others and then forgetting what you have given to them. It is not a matter of wanting something in return for what you have given. Rather, you feel sorry that you were not able to give more. So that's why all these years I've been in this movement, I understand about living a life of giving for others. And when you do that, you don't feel fear. So actually I would say most of my time I'm not feeling fear and guilt, because I understand this thing. When you give out to others, you're in a different kind of energy, a different awareness. So that's why when we live for others, we forget ourselves and our own problems, and the past does not determine. It's our attitude right now, how we are right now. And then I'd like to repeat also what he said. Once we have a relationship of love with God and become one with God, our value increases instantly to the level of God's love, God's value. Now is the time to fulfill this fundamental relationship. All human beings are created to say, I am in the Father and the Father is in me. This is everyone's fully attainable goal. When we fully comprehend the design for man in God's concept of creation, we will understand that perfection is within our grasp. Now is the time to fulfill this fundamental relationship. This is everyone's fully attainable goal. Perfection is within our grasp. It's a time of hope. It's a time to rejoice. It's a time to celebrate. So with that, I'd like to say thank you for listening.